Good afternoon. Welcome to the Hoosier Huddle podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs with another This Week in Indiana Sports. So last week we talked a little bit about Pro Day, spring practice, big series for IU softball, uh, baseball struggles, and then we have the transfer portal opening for college basketball this week. We'll get into all of that. Sorry, this is being recorded on Wednesday. We had a dental emergency with my son. Kind of fell in the bathtub and chipped his two front teeth. So we were dealing with that Sunday night, Monday, and into yesterday. So he's fine, but he does look like a little hockey player right now. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, it's been a big week on HoosierHuddle.com. We have the transfer portal covered in our Portal Combat thread that's run by TJ Inman. He has lots of good stuff. He's updating it uh, very quickly, as quickly as he could go. And, it's a good discussion with our current members. And if you're looking for a home to talk transfer portal, come check us out. Our forums are free. And then if you want in-depth stuff like our practice reports and some other stuff that we do charge for, it's $3 a month, $30 for the year, which is an absolute bargain. So let's get started with some of the bigger topics. We'll go smaller topics to bigger topics. So, we'll start with spring practice. It is week 3 of spring practice. Practice 6 was on Tuesday. Practice 7 is on Thursday. And then practice 8, which could be a scrimmage, could be a practice, but like the unofficial midway of spring practice is happening right now. Our practice reports are on the site. I've been down in it every open spring practice. There have been a couple that were closed to the media, but I can tell you right now, Josh Hoover could spin it. Now, he's not the size of Fernando, not even close to the size of Fernando Mendoza. Signetti has said that this team is probably going to take the most work of the 3 teams he's had at IU to get to where they needed to be, which makes sense because you had such a core group between the JMU guys and then Mendoza, Pat Coogan, all those guys from last year to replace, and you have some new faces in some big positions there as well. That it was a special group in 2025. This could be a special group again, but going through spring practice, it is the most, and we only see 25, maybe 30 minutes of practice. A lot of it is individual drills, and I could tell you now that there is more coaching going on that I've seen over these 3 or 4 practices than I've seen in the past spring. And it's good coaching. If there's a mistake, they jump right in, they explain the mistake, they correct the mistake, and if you need to redo the rep, they do it. There's no reason to doubt this coaching staff. They're paid what they're paid for a reason. They're very good. But this, as Signetti said, this team is going to take a lot more coaching than the previous 2 teams. They're a little bit younger. They're a little bit less experience as well. And then you have some key new pieces in, you have Bray Lynch moving to center. Carter Smith's not practicing. So you have Baylor Wilkin at left tackle. And then some other pieces around. You have some guys working back from injury as well. That, if you're in a position battle and 2 or 3 of the guys are half participants, not fully participating, it's tough to tell what you have, and we'll get to that in the fall. But again, it seems like the leaders on this team are, taking the lessons they learned from last year moving forward. There have been some updates on the spring game. Spring game is going to be Thursday, April 23rd at 8 p.m. It is the same night as the NFL draft. However, I do not know if they're going to put the draft on the big screen. The rumor was that they're talking about timing and all those things. And Cignetti is very particular about timing and all that stuff. So the good news is that it will be televised on BTN, and that I've confirmed. So if you are not going to the spring game, which I understand it's a Thursday night, if you're traveling more than 2 hours or 3 hours, I understand not going. It'll be, you could have that dual screen. That helps me. I could go back and watch it too after everything. So more details will come. Usually, I doubt that they charge for the spring game. Usually, as you show up, they sit you on the east side of the stadium, and we'll see. My only hope is that I hope that they're prepared for a big crowd. I'd rather have them be prepared for a big crowd and get a small crowd than have a big crowd and prepare for a small crowd. Because this could be the only chance that people get to go see this team this year, with ticket costs and timing and all that stuff. So, somebody taking a chance to go see a spring game, you have to make sure that their experience is good. And so far, Indiana, I think, has gotten the benefit of the doubt on that. So we'll see. But that's the spring ball update. Fernando Mendoza will not be at the draft. People have been killing him on social media. I don't think they understand what his mom is going through. The travel to Pittsburgh is tough, and it's easier for them to stay at home, stay with his mom who's terminally sick, and enjoy the moment as his family. Because as we all know, we've seen it when he in his Heisman speech, in all his press availabilities, him and his mom have a bedrock relationship. And what I mean by that, she's his foundation, and he does everything in her spirit. She's his inspiration, and so the biggest moment of his life to date, he wants to be with his family, which is totally understandable. I understand why it kind of stinks for IU. This is your first 1-1 draft pick since 1938. It's your first round draft pick since 1994. But again, it's 2026. You're going to have a camera crew probably at their home or wherever they're watching in Florida, and you should still get good pub for the university. So moving on from spring practice, we'll be down there tomorrow, so keep a lookout for our practice report as well. And we'll get to talk to Charlie Becker and Kobe Martin, so two fan favorites there. We talked last week about softball going out west and having a big opportunity against UCLA, who is ranked in top 10. A very, very, very good softball team. Indiana had their chances to pull an upset. Going into the series, I thought it would be more of a series where games were 9-7 or 10, like a high-scoring series. Indiana had a chance to win the opener. They led after 5 innings. They lost 5-4. It was their first loss after leading after 5 innings of the season. They lost game 2, 7-2, and then they lost game 3, 4-0. So kind of a wasted opportunity out there to grab one of them, improve your RPI, since your non-conference schedule wasn't super tough, which we'll get into that with baseball. And I'll compare schedules a little bit and scheduling philosophies, because I like softball scheduling philosophy a little bit more than baseball scheduling philosophy. But big week coming up for softball as well. You have Butler coming to Andy Moore Field tonight at 6 p.m. That game is on BTN Plus. And then rivalry series at home, Purdue, another good team, coming to Bloomington for a weekend series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You would expect that IU wants, of course, they want to win the series, but you need to win at least 2 out of 3 of those. Help your NCAA resume, help your RPI, and make that 4th straight College World Series or NCAA tournament and continue on, because they do have a good recruiting class coming in. This team has been fun to watch. This team could hit. pitched relatively well against UCLA. And odd in that series how many double plays there were on the ground. Softball, I haven't been watching softball forever, but when you watch softball, there's just not the base paths are shorter. And there's just, you have to be really, really smooth and crisp in your feeling to earn a double play on the ground. And both teams are really good in the field turning those double plays. And unofficially is probably the most double plays I've seen in a softball series on the ground. So they've been fun to watch, and they have a homestand coming up. They get Notre Dame as well next Tuesday, April 14th, and then hit the road for a four-game two-city road trip with a non-conference game at Louisville, and then 3 on the weekend at Iowa and Iowa City before returning home, and then go back on the road to face a good Michigan team at the end of April. So there's only a handful of games left at Andy Moore Field. If you haven't made it out, I suggest making it out, especially if the weather is better too. So let's move on to baseball, and we'll talk baseball struggles, where I think the baseball program's going, and why, if the Jeff Mercer era continues, that they need to get rid of this scheduling craziness in the non-conference, because it definitely did not prepare them for the Big Ten season this year. Indiana baseball is struggling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. They are sitting at 5-10 in the Big Ten. They are 13-19 overall. They're coming off a series where they took 2 out of 3 against Rutgers, and they survived at home against Ball State on Monday night, where they needed an error to score the winning runs there. This team does not hit for power. When they get good pitching, they don't hit. When they hit, they don't get good pitching. They kind of put it together against Ball State, but again, it's Ball State. And it just seems like it has run out of steam for the Jeff Mercer era. We'll see if IU does make a move. I do think that there's some whispers going on about it, that it needs to happen. We'll see if it actually does happen. But let's get to the scheduling philosophy between softball and baseball. And baseball starts off, you play at North Carolina, the number 11 team in the country, for 3. And I get that some of these non-conference early season games, some of them you're invited to a tournament out somewhere warm, not in Indiana in February. And then some of them are, a series like UNC, where you're playing a good team on the road to up your RPI. First of all, I would always start the season, especially a season where you're on the hot seat with the fan base, with a win. Like, you gotta. Indiana has not won a season opener since 2019. You gotta give something positive, because all this negative thinking, and I'm not blaming anybody for negative thinking with this program. All of that just gets compounded as you start the season. 0-3, 1-3, 1-4, 2-5, 3-6. You never really get to 500, and it just snowballs from there. On the softball side, they play a lot of tournaments, the Paradise Classic, and they play some good teams. They play some teams who struggle, but Indiana lost the opener to FAU 8-0, but then they go on. They beat Army. They beat then number 25 Ohio State in a non-conference game 12-3. You beat Delaware at Stonehill, and you play these games where in every little tournament that they play one really good team, and some other decent power teams, and then they play teams where you can empty your bench, build depth, stack those wins, because if softball wins 40 games, they're probably going to the Women's College World Series. So, you lose a close game at Arizona State, and then you have, the odd game against Oregon at home, where they're bouncing between road trips from Purdue and Northwestern, and play a non-conference game at Andy Moore Field, which IU led 7-0, lost 24-12 in a wild game. And then you have these midweek games where you could stack wins and pick up wins, and then hopefully get things together for Big Ten play. But if I was in charge of the Diamond Sport scheduling, I want wins first, and then I could go schedule, an LSU, a one-off against LSU, maybe a series like North Carolina, but not the first series of the year. Because the excuse that Jeff Mercer's teams made, well, it's cold in Indiana. We didn't get out on the field. That's why we're making errors, because we haven't practiced outside all that much. Well, okay. Then change your scheduling philosophy to where you're not playing a top 15 team in the country the first game of the season. Play somebody who's, I don't want to say you're going to roll over them, but play somebody that, you don't have to play perfect baseball against to win, because they don't do that. And we'll see where that goes as well. Baseball coming up. Their schedule is, the schedule hasn't been kind because they keep losing, but they go to Maryland for 3 this weekend. You have to go to Indiana State, who's already beat them. You get Evansville at home, who's already beat them, and then 3 against Abilene Christian at home before going to Muncie to play Ball State, and finishing the season, in West Lafayette on the road, and then Illinois at home, who's always had a good program with series against Iowa, Northwestern, sprinkled in there as well. So let's get to what everybody's probably been waiting for, is the basketball transfer portal. It has been a wild week with basketball. The Final Four ended on Monday. At midnight on Tuesday, the transfer portal opened. All of this is happening during a recruiting dead period, which, look, hasn't been a ton of movement, and that's probably why. That doesn't mean that people aren't talking to other people and tampering isn't happening and things like that. But both Indiana basketball teams have their work cut out for them, with a lot of roster departures. Darren DeVries obviously has the most pressure on him. Going into second year, he doesn't have the equity built up that Terry Morin has with the fan base, even though I've seen a lot of people call for Terry's job as well. But on the men's side, they got to get it right. They have to build a roster that will give DeVries a chance to prove that it's him that's working or not working. So what I mean by that is, this season you went into the season and you come out of it going, well, Darren DeVries might not be the guy. Well, he also didn't have the roster put together that you could tell that for sure. Hopefully, with Ryan Carr money available, that you could put together a roster that should be pretty competitive in the Big Ten. And if you continue to struggle, then you could definitively say, well, he might not be the right guy for Indiana basketball, and you could either move on quickly or see what the next steps are. Not putting DeVries on the hot seat, it is just that he has a tremendous amount of pressure to get this roster correct. We have a lot of updates on our forums from TJ and the rest of our guys, and it looks like IU's in some good spots with some guys. I'm not going to get into it in here because nobody wants me to read our forums on a podcast. You guys could go read it for yourselves. But there's a lot of pressure to land the right guys who could fit into the system, who could fit into the Big Ten, and perform, because being on the bubble again is not going to be good enough for anybody, much less the fan base. And I know the Indy Star called out the fan base to chill out. Some other writers did it as well. Right after the Big Ten tournament, told the fan base to chill. Here's the thing. Telling a fan base to chill is kind of telling your spouse or significant other, relax, or don't relax, or take a deep breath or calm down when you're in an argument or they're upset about something. It's not going to go over well. And telling a fan base who has, let's be honest, they have suffered a lot the last 23 years, where they basically saw the program get the death penalty. They went to a national title game in 2002. And after that, there's only been 3 trips to the Sweet 16 and that was all under Tom Crean. You saw Mike Woodson kind of stain his legacy as a Hoosier, coming back and being kept on too long. Quinn Buckner, who should be among the IU greats as a 2-sport player, is taking the brunt of criticism for being on the chair of the board of trustees, who kept his buddy on and things like that. So the fan base has stuck through a lot of this, and I would say most of it, and they're finally, after 2+ decades, getting really frustrated with, hey, this is where Indiana basketball was, this is where we are now. Why can't we have what we had, especially when across the parking lot football just won a national title, which seemed impossible. And it always seemed that basketball could take care of itself if you left a skeleton crew there to run it. I'm not saying hey, just not saying defund basketball, like some other sites said about football during the Tom Allen era. But basketball should be able to sort of run itself with minimum staff, to where you can generate, you could fundraise. You don't need 80 people calling and begging for money for basketball. You know who the big donors are. It's just the minimum number of people to do the things that you need to do to win. Should be what Indiana basketball is, to figure out how to run a game day, how to market the program and all that stuff. It doesn't need a 40-person marketing team. So Indiana basketball fans, I get it. I understand you're frustrated. I'm not going to tell you to chill out. And I know that I kind of pissed off a lot of our forum members by moving a lot of complaints off of our portal thread to its own thread. Your guys' thoughts are valid. I'm not going to devalue them and invalidate them, but when it's interrupting a thread that has information on it, it's going to get moved. So portal wise, we'll see. We'll see when this dead period ends. Who's going to, that's when I think the floodgates are going to open all around, is when this dead period ends, and you could get guys on campus, and then it should go pretty quickly. For the women, they already got one with Alyssa Williams, transfer from Iowa State. You had a lot of people who I thought on the women's team were on the fence about the portal, and some surprises too. Did not think Odessa Noyan would go to the portal. Didn't think Nevaeh Caffey would go to the portal. But people like Chloe Spreen and some others that were on the fence and kind of walking out of that Big Ten tournament, you go, okay, I'm not going to be shocked when their name's announced in the portal. So our portal updates, we have 47 pages on the forums. Come check it out. There's a ton of good stuff. And we'll get into, once portal commitments come in, we'll start breaking them down and things like that. There are a lot of targets to where we broke them down in the forum and talked about them on there, but to really talk about how they fit together, it's kind of a waste of time right now. So, we'll see. But the dead period, let me double check. I think it ends this week. But we'll see. The recruiting calendar is absolutely crazy. So, men's basketball recruiting calendar, the dead period ends. The open period starts again on the 10th. So it ends on the 9th, and the recruiting period starts on April 10th. So I think by Friday, you're going to have, now you're seeing a lot of smoke with people being, talking to people, because during a dead period, you can't make in-person recruiting contacts or evaluations. But I believe you can contact them, or have somebody. There's a workaround. People know where they're going on the 10th. So I think on Friday you're going to see a bunch of things pop. I don't know who yet, but I think Friday's when things are going to start going. It's not like football where they're in a recruiting period, the portal opens, and then bam, 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 bam. It seemed like everybody committed between January 2nd and January 8th, and it was over. Basketball, I think that period will start on the 10th, so we'll see. But it is a big off season for both programs, and they need to land who they need to land. Terry Morin has done a wonderful job with the women's basketball program. They've taken a step back the last 2 years. We'll see if she could put the pieces back together and get it to where it was a couple years ago. So anyway, that will do it for this week in IU sports. So to recap, basketball transfer portal is open. I don't expect people to start popping on commitments until Friday when the recruiting period starts. Even then, you'll still probably have a couple days where they get people on campus and visits happen just to make sure. Spring football has entered week 3. IU's looking good again. How good, we'll see, but they are looking good. They're getting through practices and improving. The spring game will be on Big Ten Network on April 23rd at 8 p.m., same night as the NFL Draft. We'll have you covered on the NFL Draft as well. We expect 8 or 9 players to get drafted over that weekend. I expect 2 to be taken in the first round, Fernando and maybe Omar Cooper. And maybe D'Angelo Pond sneaks in there as well, as he ran a 4.31 40-yard dash. But again, it's hard to predict the NFL draft as it goes along. You could look as many mock drafts as you want. But the human element of, oh no, here's the run on whatever offensive lineman, and all of a sudden a guy who was going to take D'Angelo Pons in round 1 goes, you know what, we'll wait till round 2 and take him in round 2. So I do expect 8 or 9 guys to get drafted. I do expect 10 to 15 guys to join rookie camps and things like that. So we'll have you all covered there. Baseball and softball. Softball is making a push to a 4th straight College World Series. Baseball is kind of circling the drain. We'll see where they go on from there. Again, softball plays tonight against Butler. Big weekend series against Purdue. The weather should be pretty good. So if you're in Bloomington, I'd head out to Andy Moore Field. It is a fun time. There's not a ton of seats, only seats 500, but you have plenty of lawn space. The tailgate in the parking lot where you don't really have to go into the stadium, but you can still see the game, are pretty cool. So head out there, and then we'll have you covered. So keep coming back to HoosierHuddle.com. We'll have everything: practice, transfer portal, baseball, softball, anything you need, we've got you there as well. So thanks for watching. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for a membership. It could be any membership that you want. There's a free membership that gives you access to the forums. There's a paid membership that gives you access to some more detailed articles and benefits as well. So thank you for listening, and subscribe wherever you subscribe to your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. If you have comments and questions, put it in there. And we'll be back next week to talk, hopefully, about a bountiful Indiana basketball transfer portal haul and some other things leading into Indiana football spring game. And then hopefully some good news on the diamond as well.